What's up? Welcome back for another episode of the Currency Club. My name is Whitney, and I have another special guest here, as always. And I'm very excited to have this person here. Like, I hope y'all can feel the energy in my voice and see it on the screen. But we share a lot of things in common. Two main things: a passion around ownership and assets. So, with that being said, please welcome to the virtual stage, Kie Morrison, aka Kie Thomas, aka Miss I Got the Keys on Instagram. What's up, Kie?
What's going on? My name is Kie Thomas, also Mrs. Kie. I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, but I live in Atlanta. I am coming up on my third year in business as a full-time licensed realtor with Better Homes and Gardens Metro Brokers. And I also own and self-manage rental property in Michigan and in Atlanta.
Oh, she said a lot. I can't wait to unpack so many things with her. Let's first start out talk about you being a full-time realtor. I caught that full-time right away because I know that being a realtor is a hard business. Some people start out part-time, some people work a full-time job in addition to this. It's hard from what I hear from interviewing other people and then knowing some other folks who work in that field. So, full-time realtor. Why did you get started in real estate?
Ooh, I will first emphasize, that full-time piece. I feel like that was an aspiration of mine, not just to be full-time as a realtor, but just to be full-time as a entrepreneur. And I probably underestimated what that actually took. It is a lot of work, to your point. Um, I didn't plan to be full-time in my business, not, I guess, the way it happened when it happened. But I was laid off from my last job. So I was kind of launched into entrepreneurship at that point. But I had always had a passion for real estate. I was self-managing my own rental property in Michigan and in Atlanta at that time. And I wanted to be just full-time in my business. So the next obvious step for me was to get licensed as a realtor.
But what excites you about being a realtor?
Well, initially I thought, I'd get licensed to represent myself in my own deals. My aspiration is to purchase more rental property. So I figured, let's go ahead and add that tool to the tool belt and, get licensed. But obviously I made a career out of it. I love helping and teaching other people to invest in themselves and invest in real estate. I'm just passionate about ownership and leaving a legacy for future generations. So that's kind of how I built my business on that passion.
So I read in your bio that you inherited a home from your great grandparents, and that was also part of what got you in this space.
It was so yeah. Back in 2018, my great grandfather was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And it was probably in his very last days that we started to get his affairs in order. So it wasn't like we had really any estate plan to figure out what we were going to do with his home when he passed away, not until his last few days of living. So that's when I made the decision to take ownership of the family's house so we could not just keep it in the family, but also be able to leverage the property. My grandmother is still living, so these were her parents. We actually paid the mortgage off this year. The property rents by the room, so it cash flows. Okay, it cash flows, and I just having done that, having accomplished that, is like really opened up my perspective so much for what I want to do and how I want to own more real estate for my legacy.
Paying off a house is a big deal. Congratulations there. So many
Thank
people say,
you.
I'm a homeowner. I'm a homeowner. But in reality, you're not if you have a mortgage. That's just my 2 cents on it. If you have a mortgage, you're paying the bank or some other financial institution. So it's like you're a home buyer, but you're not really a owner until you pay that property off. So
That is such an interesting perspective. And I do hear people say that all the time, right? Because you have a mortgage on the house, you don't technically own it. I don't know. I have a different psychology around it, but definitely paying off the mortgage is a whole nother level. When you're just paying your property taxes and you're not even so much dependent on The rental income is like, you could care less whether or not, you have a tenant in there or not, because you know that you don't have that debt obligation of having to pay the mortgage every month. That is a different level of freedom for sure.
Yes. Yes. So how long have you been in real estate?
So I've been self-managing the property in Michigan, and then we own a duplex here in Atlanta as well since 2018. Um, I have only been licensed as a realtor, coming up on my third year.
Okay. 3 years is still a long time. So many people try stuff, 6 months, 12 months. If it don't go the way they wanted to, they quit. They go back to doing something else that's familiar. So congrats to being
Absolutely.
in a business for 3 years. So you own a duplex in Atlanta. Talk about
Yeah.
that. Talk about how that generates income for you.
Ooh, the duplex is the ultimate life hack. I think I heard Jovan Naves talk on one of your previous episodes about purchasing a duplex. Um, when I first moved here to Atlanta, I just tried to expose myself to as many people in real estate as possible. And I came across this influencer in real estate. I mean, I don't know if he's the most liked anymore, but he had a book that he published called Lord of My Land. And in his book, he talked about owning a duplex and living on one side and renting the other side out. And that concept just stuck with me. It was like, I mean, he just made it so simple. It just seemed like it was so simple and so obtainable. So I had set my intentions on doing that. This was probably during the pandemic, to purchase a property here in Atlanta. And obviously, that was probably the most ideal time with where the interest rates were. I think we got like the lowest interest rates at that time. Um, and my mortgage payment I mean, it was minimal. So right away, we inherited a tenant when we first moved into our place. And we didn't have it that they were paying the entire mortgage, but they were paying such a substantial amount of it that our living expenses were like basically zero. Now it's been, I think, 3 years that we've been renting out our duplex and living in it, and we don't pay anything. The mortgage is paid by the other tenant. So we live for free, in my opinion.
That's a big deal as well. Way to generate some wealth and some passive income and live for free, like you said. So when you inherited these tenants, did you increase their rent at any point?
So we've had 3 tenants in 3 years.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. The first tenant that we inherited, it was not a pleasant transition. And that was something I feel like I hadn't read about in my research. All the podcasts that I've listened to that talked about owning a duplex and getting a duplex that maybe already had tenants in place. That was one of the things they just didn't warn you about, is when you are coming in as a new landlord, first of all, or new to this tenant, that relationship, as far as making that introduction with them and letting them know that, essentially they're going to have to kind of just, comply with whatever new rules that you put in place for your lease and all of these things. It's not always a smooth transition, and it wasn't with this particular tenant. He was unpleasant. It made the tenant landlord relationship unpleasant, but thankfully his lease was actually coming up on expiration. So I gave him an option. I did tell him what our plans were to improve the property, but also increase the rents. And it didn't work for him, and that was okay. So mutually, we just agreed that he would move out when his lease expired.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
y'all, I say like 3 tenants in 3 years is a lot, because I had shared another episode that I also own property in Michigan, the
Mhm.
hometown, right? Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I've been a landlord as well for just about 4 years.
Mhm.
So the first 3 years, it was the same tenants for 3 years. And that was wonderful for me. That was lovely for me. I knew
Mhm.
exactly what to expect with them. They paid their rent on time. I'm like, life is good. But then when it was time for them to move out and I was considering who would move in next, I'm like, I want somebody who is going to be here for another 3 years. I don't want to go through the process of turning a house multiple times, right? So when I say turning a house, I'm thinking about cleaning the house, getting it painted, because sometimes you have to paint depending on what the previous tenants did before. So just making it look and feel fresh, new and clean for the next people coming in. Right. So I'm like, I don't want to have to do this every year. The longer it takes to get a tenant in your house, that's obviously money that you're not making. So if you're like, I'm renting out a property for X number of dollars, that's lost income. So, I mean, hopefully you're in a position where you're not counting on that money to live. But if you are, like, you don't want your house to be vacant for 3 months, 6 months during a flip. So for the other people listening in who are thinking about being a landlord, in my opinion, long-term tenants who are good tenants who are going to pay their rent on time is better than, getting a new tenant every year. So thank you for being transparent with us and sharing that the first,
Yeah.
tenant wasn't all that great, but yeah, you figured it out. That's part of being a
And that's
landlord, figuring
it.
it out.
I think to your point too, when you talk about vacancies and also, the costs that you incur as a landlord, right? Turning over a property or having it sit and not having a tenant in place. That is one issue I have never had. Okay. Housing obviously is an issue, right? And there's such a shortage of housing that, particularly where we're located, we're in town Atlanta, so probably 10 minutes to the airport, 10 minutes to downtown Atlanta. So it's just, it's a convenient location. I have never had issues renting our place out or finding qualified tenants for our place. I've also never had an issue of non-payment from a tenant. It's been more of a personality mismatch than anything, having, to remove tenants from our place. But vacancies have never been an issue, and we're always able to cover our mortgages. We've never really had to pay our mortgage because we've always had a tenant in place. Our tenant that we have currently actually is just signing their third lease. So, prayerfully, we continue to keep and have, like you said, long-term tenants, because you don't want to deal with the constant turnover of having to, prep and get that property ready for a new tenant.
All right. So you also shared that you manage your own properties. You own properties and you manage properties. Talk to me about what that looks like. And I say that because I had considered using a property manager for my house back in Grand Rapids. And I was like screening some folks and walking through the fees. And at the end of the day, I didn't trust those people to manage my property, because the first 3 years, me and my dad managed my property because that's like the line of business that he does. But then I was like, okay, I'm getting some new tenants in here. Maybe I'll use a property manager. And then I heard some horror stories about how other people manage properties and houses got condemned under another management company supposedly managing the property, right? Because
Wow.
they sell you this dream. Some property management companies, they act like they're going to do all of these great things. We're going to find your tenants, we can maintain your property, we can send people over here, we can change whatever needs to be changed, like we can do all the work for you. Sometimes they don't do what they say they're going to do. So I said all that to say, my next go around, right? Like these tenants that I have in my house now, I'm still managing myself, and you manage yourself as well. So talk to me about what that looks like for you.
Whew, it is a lot of work. I've heard Jovan Naves mention on his interview with you that he maybe takes 1 or 2 calls a month. I mean, if I'm getting 1 or 2 calls a month, I'm a little nervous. I'm like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are they not telling me? Um, Particularly because of the property that we manage in Michigan is rented by the room. I'm managing 4 tenants in one household. And that is, for me, I felt like, it's just constant communication. And it can be constant turnover as well, because they're also on a short-term lease, which is month to month. So I feel like it is quite hands-on. It's not passive at first. I do think that once you set up the processes and you have, like you said, the partnerships in place, whether it be with your contractors or, you just have boots on the ground, people to go check on the property for you, then it can become more passive. But at first, it can be a lot of work on the front end. But I do think that you should get familiar with how to manage your property as well as your tenants. I think I heard someone mention that, when you haven't lived in the property, you don't know what's wrong with it. You don't know kind of the upkeep and the repairs that it might need. So keeping that line of communication open with your tenants and kind of reassuring them too that, you're going to be a good steward of your property and make sure you take care of repairs when they do come up. It just builds trust. It builds trust. It builds credibility. And, that's the relationship I want to have with my tenants. I want them leaving me positive reviews when they decide that they're going to move out, and that, that it wasn't an unpleasant experience or relationship with either myself or them. But it can be a lot of work on the front end, but it can become more passive on the back end if you set up your processes for it.
All right, so shout out to you for watching previous Currency Club interviews, right? She keep plugging the episode with Jovan Naves, and I love that. Like,
I'm a student.
Me too, always. So thank you for that. Shout out to Jovan Naves for coming on the show. We're going to link his episode. Click the card to watch his episode. But I want to talk to you about your house in Grand Rapids has 4 tenants. How does this work? A bunch of strangers living in one house?
Yes. So oddly enough, when I took ownership of the property, I was living in Michigan at that time. I was in my last year of college, and I had just my lease had just expired, where I was renting and roommating with a long time friend. So I decided I would just move into the property. So I did. I moved into the property. It's a 4-bedroom home. There's a master bedroom on the main level, and then all the other rooms are upstairs. I moved into the master on the main level, and I immediately started renting out the rooms upstairs while I was in college. And I had no idea what I was doing. I probably put the ad for this place for rent, these rooms for rent, on Craigslist and all types of things, like Facebook Marketplace. I don't think I had any software, like proper software to do like your criminal background check, any of those things. But my background and my experience had been in like human resources, recruiting, that sort of thing. Girl, I was just winging it, okay? Interviewing these tenants for the rooms. And I actually, for several months, roommated with guys, girls who rented the rooms from me. I never had a negative experience roommating with these strangers. I mean, I had no issues. So when I moved to Atlanta, it really was an easy transition for me to be able to, like I said, fill the vacancies and manage the property from Atlanta. It's like I said, it's a lot when you have 4 people living in a house together. It becomes less about what they can afford and more about whether or not they have a personality for roommating. You have to make sure that it's a match for all of the people that live there. So that's kind of the biggest challenge with them renting by the room.
You're the first person that I know that's ever taken that approach. So it's just so intriguing to me. That's interesting. A good concept. So when you lived there, it was strangers. I rented to men, women. Was it primarily college students or just some of everyone?
No, it was not primarily college students. I think in a perfect world, I would have loved to just roommate it with other students, but no, I had a very elder, more mature guy that lived upstairs. He was retired. He was receiving, fixed income, Social Security, retirement benefits. So he was at home all day, like he would cook. He was like the dad of the house. And he was actually one of my longest term tenants. I think when he moved out, he actually had built him a modular home, so he purchased the house. The other gentleman was probably well into his 30s or 40s. He had kids that he would get maybe a couple times out of the week, and they might come over. So I mean, as much as it sounds like this was like a lively house, the house was really quiet. Everybody stayed to themselves. It wasn't a disrupt to any of the other people living there. If you had guests over, for the most part, we were all working or in school, but one of the gentlemen was actually retired.
What are the lease terms for your house in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, the lease terms are pretty straightforward. The rent includes all of the utilities. It also includes the Wi-Fi internet. They're just responsible for paying for their rent every month. It is a month-to-month lease. I do require at least 30 days notice. I think that flexibility in it being a month-to-month lease, it not only gives them the flexibility of moving on if they decide that they want to move on, but it also protects my interests. I don't want to be in a situation, especially with roommates, where you're locked into a long-term lease and if anything were to happen, I want to, and I hate to say this as a landlord, but be able to um, remove you from the house if an issue occurs. I don't want to have it where your lease expires 6 and 7 months down the line. No, if we're on a month to month lease and I have more flexibility, you have more flexibility, and it just protects both of our interests.
So we are on the show to talk about making money. Can I ask you, what is the fee that you charge for a room in a house?
So, and you know what? I haven't really changed the rents a whole lot. I did maybe in the last year, but I feel like in the last 8 years they had kind of stayed the same. I think we might have started out at like $500 a month, and then more recently we went up to $650 a month. So the rooms rent for $650,
Okay.
and
But
rooms
are
rent for
utilities
one
included?
person only. I do not rent to couples or people with live-in children or live-in roommates. It's just the house capacity just won't allow for it.
Mm-hmm. So look, friend, do you do pop-ups? Do you pop up at the house in Grand Rapids and walk through?
Oh, quite a bit. And I don't do them, but I have people who live in state in Michigan that do pop up and check on the house for me a lot.
Yeah, that's important to me, y'all. So in all my leases, I write that either me or one of my agents can show up at the property at any time and do a walkthrough and do an inspection and make sure that stuff is what it's supposed to be. Because as a landlord, I'm not about to have people running my house into the ground. This is an investment for me. Like, I need to make sure stuff is in the condition it should be in, right? Because you don't want to
Absolutely.
rent to a person and then come to find out 3 years later, it's holes in the walls, leaky pipes. It's, so many things that could happen that could ruin the structure and foundation of your house if you don't do those pop-ups and check in. So another thing, money related, are you writing it off as a business expense? Them
Oh,
trips back to Grand Rapids, do you know about that?
so the thing is, I really don't get to the property that often. I don't. I mean,
Okay.
and when I do go back to Grand Rapids to visit family and friends, like they're lucky if I even go by the property because I may not even go by it.
Okay.
I think the biggest challenge for me with wearing this hat of a landlord investor, and also being the property management is I have really tried hard to have it where my tenants don't know that I own the house.
Okay.
I want them to just see me as property management, not as the landlord. I
Okay.
think there's just a different level of comfort that they might have with me, that they wouldn't have if they knew that I was the landlord. And I mean, really, at this point, all my tenants kind of know that I'm the landlord. But I just set boundaries in the relationship. Most of them have never seen me, and I have never seen them in person.
Oh, well, thank you for that. So I want to talk a little bit about the move, right? So
Yeah.
we're both from Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's actually how I met Kishari. She's friends with one of my younger cousins and has been for a very long time, right? So, I've known her for just a very long time. Seen her grow and flourish into this wonderful, young, professional, beautiful, married woman. So very proud of you. I just want to say
Thank
that first and
you.
foremost. But why did you move from Grand Rapids to Atlanta?
So my now husband was my boyfriend. And back in 2019 when I made the move, he had already relocated to Atlanta, maybe 2 or 3 years prior. So we were long distance at that time, and I would frequent Atlanta to come visit him, and coming here just really exposed me to, first of all, a lot of uh, people who look like us that were entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, and that exposure for me was just like unmatched. I knew I, did not have that exposure back home. I hate to describe it this way, but when I was living in Grand Rapids and also working in a corporate environment, it felt very rigid, very white, very conservative, and I really just wanted to be around people who looked like me, that were doing well, that were successful in their businesses. So that was part of the reason. That was most of the reason that I relocated to Atlanta. But my boyfriend was also here too, so that helped.
I hear you. I feel you. That's 100% the reason why I moved to Houston. I visited here and fell in love with it, and I was like, "Oh wow, the diversity, the racial and racial and ethnic. Slow down, Whitney. The racial and ethnic diversity,
Yeah.
the culture, the food, the weather, so many things. But that diversity piece is definitely what Grand Rapids is missing, and the main reason that I moved away as well. So I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about, like, kind of what was the greatest lesson that you learned, or what did that transition from Grand Rapids to Atlanta teach you? Like, how did you benefit from moving?
Ooh, so that transition taught me that you can do anything and you can move anywhere. Um, at first, it was difficult because, you miss your family and friends back home, and you might have some, you might feel homesick at times as well. But I had set, I had, very specific intentions when I moved to Atlanta, and it was definitely to, like I said, get more exposure in, real estate investing and entrepreneurship, and I got that. I think you have to move with clear intentions, and when you do, and you marry your intentions, you marry your goals, you're going to get the outcomes that you're looking for, and that's kind of what it's taught me.
Hmm. So moving is a big risk. I'm happy that it's working out well for you. This is going to take me into my first game, right? If y'all know me, if y'all watch Currency Club, y'all know that I like to have a little fun with the guests. So this game is related to the concept of being a hustler, right? Currency Club is made for the hustlers, the entrepreneurs, the go-getters of the world. What's the craziest thing you've ever done for money?
At first I thought renting the rooms out was the craziest thing.
It is, friend, it is.
I thought that was the craziest thing I've done because, like I said, I really had no process, no experience for vetting these people that I was roommating with. I mean, they could have been serial killers and rapists. I don't know, but God protects me, so I have no worries. And it just worked out. It worked out so perfectly, and I'm thankful to even look up now 8 years later and say that we paid the house off because I made that decision. So that's probably been the craziest thing I've done.
Okay. I have another money question for you. Researchers say that you can tell a lot about a person based on what they spend their money on. So
Mm.
when you think about your budget, your weekly budget, your monthly budget, your annual budget, what gets the most money from you?
I would have to say food,
You a
and
foodie?
I
Atlanta got some good
honestly
food.
think that's due to inflation because we cook every night.
Okay.
Every night. So that's one thing that I don't have this habit of eating out. It's just that we prepare meals every day, and the groceries have gone up significantly. Okay, so I would have to say food, but the other one is probably going to be like personal hygiene, self care. I do
Okay.
spend money on that.
So are you like going to the spa, or are you just buying luxury products, or you just buy a lot of products when you think about self-care?
Man, I mean, I'm not going to the spa enough. But I think it's just things like hair, like getting my eyebrows done and skincare products. Those things are expensive. I'm gonna say probably, yeah, mostly like in the products that you purchase. Things for your hair, your skin, perfumes, all those
Mhm.
things. Those are probably the things I spend money on.
Okay. So still talking about money, but then also transitioning back into your full-time profession of being a realtor. Talk to me about how you make money as a realtor. For people who don't know, break it down for us.
Yeah. So I primarily service buyers and sellers in my business. I also work with some lease clients as well, but I'm particularly passionate about ownership. So even if someone comes to me and they're not, let's say, quote unquote, prepared to purchase, I do offer free credit counseling, and I also work with a financial well-being coach that meets with my clients on a regular basis to help them with things like budgeting and money management so that we can prepare you to purchase when you're ready. Um, our compensation as realtors is 100% commission based. So if we do not close a sale transaction or a lease transaction, we do not get paid, period. And that is a grind. It truly is, because I know I heard someone else mention on a previous episode, Tara Jones. She talked about how every industry has its seasonal highs and lows. And I think you even talk about how you have to prepare for fluctuations in your income as a full-time entrepreneur. That is something that I was faced with, that reality maybe after my first year in business. When you do the numbers and you prepare to even file your taxes and you look at just how much money you made, but also what it costs to do business, sometimes you're lucky to break even. So like I said, it is definitely a grind to be full-time in this business.
Now, you use the word cost. Let's talk about what it costs to be a realtor, because I know it's some association fees and some other things like that. So if you can remember, think back to what it costs to get your real estate license in Atlanta. Like, what was that investment like?
Yeah, so when I got licensed back in 2022, I think it was, I don't think the cost has changed much. It was probably $200 or $300, and sometimes the academy where you're taking your pre-license course will offer scholarships or certain deals, so they can make it more affordable. But it costs a few $100s to do the pre-license course, which is a 75-hour class. And then you also have to take your school exam and then your state exam, and those things cost as well, maybe $50 or $80. That's assuming you pass the first time. And statistically, they say it takes 5 times to pass your real estate exam. So yeah, that cost can add up quite a bit. But once you get your real estate license, if you decide that you are going to become a realtor and you're going to join a local association, a board of realtors in your state, then that has a cost. It's typically an annual cost. I think mine's about $500 or $600 a year. In addition to that, you have to hang your license as a real estate agent with a broker. So my brokerage, Better Homes and Gardens Metro Brokers, has brokerage fees. And the fees are for things like their office spaces that we utilize, the technology, all of their system software. So there are resources, trainings, continuing education classes, all of those things are included in your brokerage fees, and it can cost a couple $100 a month.
So
that's just the basic costs. I ain't even getting into marketing and all of the other things.
Mm-hmm. So are we thinking like $1,000? If it's $200 to $300 to get the fees, then you got to have the brokerage fees and like
startup.
To get started. Mm-hmm.
Startup, you should anticipate about $1,000. Sure, you should anticipate about $1,000 just for your startup costs. And then on a monthly basis, you would probably want to budget, a couple $100 a month.
Thank you for that. You use the word marketing. She watches the show. She knows what to expect, because I'm going to talk about marketing next. So what sets you apart as a realtor from the competitors?
Ooh, so what sets me apart from my competitors is, we have this saying in our industry, right? Where, our ideal client is ready, willing, and able. I mean, if you're a realtor, like, you just know that phrase. It's just kind of like engraved in our minds. And I feel like many of my clients, like especially, my sphere of influence, my family and friends, people I know from back home, many of them are like me. They may be first generation homeowners. They may be leaders in their family, carrying responsibilities for siblings or aging parents, grandparents, children. And they just don't have it all together yet, or they don't have much support on their home buying or home selling journey. So that's not a hard requirement for me that you be ready, willing, and able. Um, I want somebody that's willing, just willing to do what it takes, no matter how long it takes, even when the progress is slow. My value proposition is meeting those people where they are because I understand, what it's like to be in that position.
And how do you market yourself?
I market myself a few different ways because I'm obviously a Grand Rapids native. Most of my family and friends still live in Michigan. So I try to stay present on my social media platform because a lot of them are on there so that they can see me being active in my business and active in the industry. That way, when they do think of real estate, they think of me. Um, the other side of that marketing is marketing to home buyers and home sellers in my state. I do a lot of free marketing. I am door knocking, cold calling, leads, expired leads for sale by owners. So a lot of my marketing is very hands on right now. I do know quite a few agents that do more passive marketing tactics, things like mailers, sending things, postcards and things by mail. But I do a lot of like boots on the ground, door knocking, and cold calling.
Shout out to the traditional marketing and the traditional sales tactics because we rely so heavily on the internet, which the internet is a blessing. We can reach people all over the world with the internet. But I just always think, what if the internet crashes tomorrow? Which internet has crashed before, right? Social apps have crashed before. Glitches happen all the time. And I'm just like, what if we didn't have the internet? How would we do our work? How would you promote yourself, brand yourself, market yourself, get yourself in front of customers? So I'm thinking about social media because I said it was a blessing. I love social media, y'all. Kie is also a podcast host, right? So
Yeah.
she has a show that's on YouTube, but then also podcast platforms, where she is one of the co-hosts with some other Black excellence type people, right? And it's called Talking Assets ATL. So I also see that as a great marketing strategy
Yeah.
because if you are on the podcast or you're creating content on YouTube, YouTube is the number 2 search engine next to Google, right? So even if you are just putting yourself out there in that regard, you could attract customers without even trying because you are on there, you're sharing your experience, you're showing your personality, you're letting people know what you do, and they may find you that way as well. Just like, oh, she's a person I need to know, or, a person who could help me with whatever I'm trying to do in this real estate space. So I said a lot, sorry. But talk to me about Talking Assets ATL podcast.
Talking Assets ATL podcast definitely came from just having real estate conversations in the office with my peers, with other agents who are newer licensees in the business as well. We're always talking about real estate. And, we thought that this information would be helpful to aspiring real estate agents or business owners, but also, a tactic to hopefully generate some business as well and attract clients. My strategy with the podcast was to, like what you're doing, have clippable content for my social media. I not just want to flood people's timeline with home tours and pretty houses. I wanted to educate my sphere of influence through social media. So you'll see clips of me on my pages talking about things like credit, things like money management. We're talking about even some of those personal growth topics like burnout and budgeting, all of these different topics, because I don't just want to get, especially my home buyers, into homes. I want them to be equipped and prepared homeowners in all facets of life. So I'm hoping through our content that I'm able to not just attract clientele, but also educate, my sphere of influence.
Mm-hmm. You are doing that. I watched 4 episodes so far. I'm going to go back and watch all of them, but I watched 4 episodes. Every episode was really good energy, first off. So you can tell that the people on the show who are co-hosting along with Kie are passionate about the topics that they're talking about. Everyone is on a different journey. I appreciated that about the show. Everybody has a little bit of a different perspective based on the experience that they've had or what their own personal goals are in this space. But it was just very informative. So highly encourage all of the viewers. If you like this interview, this conversation, everything you're hearing from Kie, definitely tap in with her podcast, Talking Assets ATL. Just Google it. They're on YouTube, but they're on some other platforms too. So Google that, follow them on Instagram and all of the other sites. To wrap up kind of the marketing conversation, what would you say is your number one tip for attracting new customers as a real estate agent or as a realtor?
Easy. Be talking to people all of the time. It is not enough to post to your social medias like we talked about and rely on internet marketing, or rely on people reaching out to you. You need to be reaching out to people. That starts with your sphere of influence, the people who know, like, and trust you, your family and friends. As much as we like to say in this space of entrepreneurship that your support, most of your support doesn't come from family and friends, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be marketing to them, because they may know someone who has a need, that you're able to service them through your business. So do be calling not just the people you've grown up with, but old coworkers, former bosses, people at church. I mean, anybody you can think of. Be having conversations with them about what you do and introducing yourself to people, just out in public. I frequent my grocery store. Like I said, we cook every day, and I have made it a point to go to the same grocery store. I don't shop at another grocery store because I want them to know my face. I want them to know my name tag, that I do real estate. So when they see me, they know that I'm pretty much the neighborhood realtor. So I'm just very intentional about putting myself in rooms and environments where I can talk and meet more people.
Hmm. Talk to me about what you feel are the top two skills a person needs to be a realtor. What are the top two skills you would think a person needs to be a realtor?
The first obvious one is you need to be sociable. I have heard people say that they were introverts when they introduce themselves or talk about their personality type. And I'm not saying that an introvert can't be an agent, but this is a people business. This is a relationship business. You need to be talking to people. It's almost exhausting the number of people you're going to talk to in a day, but you need to be talking to people. Be very sociable, period. The other skill I would say that you need as a real estate agent is you have to be consistent. It is very much a numbers game. Um, I do several consultations, several buyer and seller presentations on a monthly basis, and I don't get them all. I don't convert them all to clients, but I know if I continue to go on appointments, if I continue to, make contact with new customers or potential customers, that eventually one of those are going to convert. And I'm also going to learn in the process how to build my skills up and perfect my presentations as well. So be consistent as well.
All right. So let's talk about challenges because for some people, being consistent is a challenge, me included. Consistency is a challenge. So talk to me about some challenges as a realtor.
Whew. It is a challenge, especially in the beginning, because you're trying to figure out how to structure your day and structure your life in such a way that you treat your business like you would if you were working on your 9 to 5. Especially if you are a full-time entrepreneur, you do need to get yourself out of the bed and out of the house and get yourself dressed like you would if you were walking into someone's job. That is a consistent challenge because you may fall out of the cadence of doing that. Maybe you get sick. That's the biggest thing. Maybe you get sick and you can't work for a few days. It's not like you have this PTO where you're still going to get paid for your time off. You are your greatest asset. The fact your ability to work is your greatest asset. So that's probably the biggest challenge is if you don't work, you don't eat. So get yourself up and get yourself out every day, and treat your business like you would, someone else's.
So if you could go back in time and do it all over again,
Mhm.
would you do anything differently?
Ooh, I heard someone else answer that with like a straight up no, I wouldn't do anything differently. I absolutely would. I talked about in the beginning how, full time entrepreneurship, I sort of underestimated the challenges of that. And didn't I didn't really prepare for those seasonal highs and lows and fluctuations in my income. I think if I were starting off, I would definitely make sure I had more reserves and money set aside for those seasonal highs and lows. um, I would probably have, just set up some additional streams of income, or, maybe a side hustle or a part time job, something convenient around my schedule for my business that could have supplemented my income. I think you need to make sure at the end of the day that your basic needs are being met. And I say that because I never want to get to a place where I'm servicing my clients out of a space of lack, or out of a space where I feel like I absolutely need this deal to close so that I can pay my bills.
Like desperation almost? You
Desperation,
don't want.
even. No, because that takes away from the client's experience, and it also takes away from the enjoyment that I get of doing what I'm passionate about. I want to do this because this is what I love to do, not because it makes me money and I can pay my bills. So I
Okay.
think when you can serve people from that place of abundance, this place of, all of my needs are met, um, I think you check your integrity as well. Like, you make sure that you're servicing them from a place of integrity.
All right. So I want to switch it up. It's time for another game, girls. Time for another game. I always like to create space to promote minority-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses. So, um, I guess it's not even a game, just more of a question. But what is your favorite Black-owned business? It could be in the
Oh,
world. It doesn't
so
have to be Atlanta or Grand Rapids. What's
okay.
some of your favorite Black-owned businesses?
Okay, real easy. And I think because their marketing is so good, God is Dope is one of my favorite businesses. I mean, they are going to exhaust you with the text message marketing and all of the social media, but they always come out with new graphics for their t-shirts and things like that. And they just be so timely. Like, I mean, I think one I saw recently said, God, I love you. You my everything. I was like, I
Yes.
need that. I need that shirt.
Mhm.
So I
Playing
love
off of
my
that sexy red. Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so what is your favorite TV show or movie with a predominantly Black cast?
This is an easy one for me too. Being Mary Jane. I mean, that might not be everyone's staple, but it's Being Mary Jane for me. I feel like I've always loved Gabrielle Union and the roles that she's played, just as like this successful, like independent, self-sufficient woman. And like I said, that's part of the reason that I moved to Atlanta. Just that exposure to people like that and women like that. That cast is it for me. Like, I love Being Mary Jane.
I have not watched it in so long. I feel like I watched it when it was live on TV and I
Yeah.
missed one episode and never went back.
Oh my
So,
God, you've got to watch it. I've rewatched it and rewatched it. I even got my husband interested in it. And it's, to me, it's like a chick flick.
yes, it is for sure. For sure. So all right, talk to me about your business again, either as a realtor, as a property owner and property manager, just this entrepreneurial journey that you've been on. What is your greatest accomplishment?
Ooh, my greatest accomplishment, and I don't really talk about this enough, um, because I mean, you come into your first year in business with all these high hopes and high aspirations, and I mean, you don't always, sometimes you miss the mark, and you don't always meet or accomplish those goals at the time frame in the time frame that you would want to, but I did in my first year of business. I was named Rookie of the Year. I was one of 5 agents in our brokerage, and we've got 2,600 agents. That was named a top sales agent for 2023. So yeah, that was a huge accomplishment for me. Even though I didn't meet my money goals, it was an accomplishment to do that in my first year of business.
That's a big deal. And not even being like a Atlanta native, a Georgia native, to be in a whole other state making moves like that, getting that recognition.
That is
Congratulations
a
on
huge
that.
thing too, like not having been networked here because I'm not from here, but I've met
Mhm.
so many people, just in the last 5 years that I've lived here, and it's definitely paid its return on investment for sure.
Yes. So what's next for your business?
So I haven't shared this with many people, but
Give us some tea, girl.
I've heard you interview a broker, right? And
Jay Kilgore. For
yes,
those of you who are new to the show, go watch that video, that
yes,
episode with Jay Kilgore from Muskegon. So, our Michigan network.
that's right. And I know that for most realtors, that is like the obvious next step. Typically, at 3 years of being a licensed real estate agent, you're eligible to take the exam and get licensed as a broker. But I am not looking to become a broker. I actually want to get my instructor's license. I want to be able to teach pre license courses for new aspiring real estate agents. And I also want to be able to teach continuing education classes for agents who have their license but have to keep up with the education and trainings that we take. So that's next for me, instructor's license on the way.
I can see you as an instructor. I can see you in front of a
I received
classroom, a real classroom,
that. I
virtual.
received
I can see that.
that.
Yes. All right. So the interview is coming to an end. I want to close out on a,
Mhm.
inspirational message as always. First, I want to talk about though, like what song or album instantly puts you in a good mood. So when you need to feel motivated and
Mhm.
inspired and get up out the bed and get cute and go out and network, what song or album instantly puts you in a good mood?
Especially in this space of entrepreneurship and real estate, like my go-to song is "I Can Have It All" by DJ Khaled featuring her. I think Meek Mill's on there. That's it for me. I just need to hear that, and I'm like ready.
I love that one. I'm gonna play that after this interview. That's a good one. Thank
Yeah.
you. So I, of course, want to thank you for your time, your energy, your
Thank
attention.
you.
Thank you for being transparent with us, spilling some tea with us. You said I don't talk about this often, but okay, so y'all heard it here first, right? That's the value of tuning into the Currency Club. And before we go, I want you to leave the viewers with an inspirational message.
Entrepreneurship is just a personal development plan, brilliantly disguised as a financial opportunity. The more inner work you do, the more outer success you will have. What that quote means to me is that, it's not just about building a business, being your own boss, and making a lot of money. Entrepreneurship is truly a opportunity for personal growth and development, and you should treat it as such because you are going to face challenges on this journey that are going to force you to deal with yourself and work on yourself. So as much as we hear successful business leaders talk about that mindset piece, and we kind of attribute it as fluff, that is essential. You cannot skip around mindset. There's no shortcut to mindset. You have to do the work on yourself if you're going to see success and results in your business
Or in life, your business or in
or
life, that personal work and personal growth is so important. So, thank
life.
you so much. With that being said, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the club, and we will see y'all next time.